All right. Chair remarks, I have none. We're excited that the pool's going to open up. We've weathered this storm halfway all right, but that is in no way an indication that we are out of this storm. So with that, we do have some guests here. We have Munson Hicks. We have Ann from, what is the actual, I don't want to mess this up on you.
Deerfield Valley Communication Union District.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we have her joining us. We also have Gordon Christensen this evening, and Seth is here for his update. So with that, Mr. Emery and Mr. Snow, you gentlemen have the floor.
Okay, I think I just unmuted. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, I don't know what week we are in. It seems like it's been a very long time. But I just want to let you know that things are opening up. As you all know and have been watching the governor, he has slowly opened up, as he's turning the spigot. And it continues to be good news. Restaurants are now being able to eat within the four walls. However, I just want to make sure that you understand, don't let your guard down. We're not out of this yet. The virus is not over, and there's not a way to control it right now. The only way that we have is the same thing that we've been talking about for 3 or 4 months now, is that you need to do social distancing, washing your hands, and face coverings. Those are the 3 things that appear to be working the very best, and Vermont has been very good doing that. And so therefore, it allows us to open up. However, today's reports, there are 3 new cases in the state of Vermont for 1,131 cases. The good news is there are only 2 in the hospital, and they're still hanging with 55 deaths. However, the good news is there hasn't been a death in 2 weeks. 52,890 people in Vermont have either volunteered to be tested or have testing because they had to. So I can tell you that I elected to do the test with my wife, and other than being uncomfortable, it's not a bad test. So with that, I do know that Vernon stands with 9 cases that are being reported, and that's through the whole term of this thing. So with that, I know Seth is going to report as we go on about the recreation department. That's a challenge that he's met head on, and I think he's prepared and ready to rock and roll with that. As you know, the school have been giving, I won't call it a green light, but it's an amber light with lots of changes for their upcoming year. I met with Tom at the town hall. We reviewed the protocols and procedures for people coming in there. Tim has it down well. They purchased a thermometer, so if anybody is coming in, this includes the employees. They do their thermometer testing every day. They're cleansing, they have the wipes and everything. If anybody's coming in, they make appointments still. And let's see, we also looked at setting up the 6-foot distance. We went down to the selectmen's room and we measured things out, and it would appear that the 5 select board people can keep the distancing, so social distancing of 5 foot if and when you decide to go back there. We also did the room, set the room up with 6 foot apart. And I don't recall, Tom would probably tell you the numbers better than I.
Yeah, we were able to do 12 less 2 for the town administrator and Mrs. Hammond, less 1 for BCTV. So you had 8 or 9 that could come in addition to those folks in the select board.
And as you know, as of today, 25 is a magic number right now. However, soon the governor is talking about increasing that to 50. But right now it's 25 is the magic number. So I do know, and I'll take the lead here. There's some question about suggestion of when you could open, the town could open up more. Mark Snow and I have conversed about that. And I think we both agree that at this stage, keeping within the limits of what the governor wants, the 25 people, keeping in with the limits of social distancing, the 6 foot, having the ability to test people's temperatures and wearing masks, I think that you are in a position to go into a discussion to see where you want to go with opening up your meetings now. Having said that, I haven't done any homework or research to what other towns are doing as far as the select board, and I don't know what is happening with that. I do know Brattleboro is following a similar protocol that you are for people coming in and employees. And now I'll just turn it over and let Mark pick that up.
Hi. Thanks, Dave. You did a fine job outlining everything. I really don't have much to add this evening. Like Dave mentioned, Vermont seems to be doing very well, and the main reason that is because people are doing what they need to do. They are taking the universal precautions, masking their face, social distancing, which is huge in this situation. So I want to thank everyone for doing their part on minimizing what could be much worse than what we're experiencing now here in this immediate area. I do recommend that if people are looking for additional information, that they should log on to healthvermont.gov. That's the Vermont Department of Public Health's website. They are updating that daily and providing guidance through that website. So I would highly recommend for people looking for information to log on to that website. As far as select board meetings, town hall, office hours, things of that nature, again, I would say as long as the state guidelines are being followed and that the policies are in place, that the select board feels that they are comfortable with opening things, that we should move forward.
Could I ask you a couple of questions specific to the town office building? Because Tim had questioned me this morning about it. I guess the first thing, so Governor Scott has extended the state of emergency for 1 more month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it your wish and professional opinion that the town of Vernon should continue to follow suit with that and leave ours as it is?
Absolutely. I was going to bring that up also, is that we declared a state of emergency following the state with its suggestion. So along with that, I think it would be wise for us to stay within that. However, I think it gives us another avenue for recovering any monies that we may be able to do, even though we're already in that. The governor has declared that. So it's just another leg to keep in there. So I would suggest that we keep with the state and then that another month extension.
So our next select board meeting would be 3 weeks from today, the way that the weeks fall in June. I would love to get back in there and actually have face-to-face meetings. There's going to be some interviews that'll be happening for the town administrator. That would be nice to do those face-to-face. But the question, and Gene, I apologize for taking your question, but the question kind of about just that there's no airflow down there. Those windows open to a hole in the ground. Is that really an ideal location for a select board meeting? Are there things that we should be looking at, or?
Well, fire code wise, you meet the requirements for exiting the building. However, I'm not aware of anything, and I don't know if Mark may, as far as a health officer, I'm not sure any air quality tests have ever been done there. But I guess, you know, the other part of that is the governor has also said that the more you can do meetings outside, the better you are. However, when we were talking about maybe a different venue might be more appropriate, you know, a larger venue or the school or some other building that would allow you that social distancing as well. So, however, the pool, the swimming pool. So having said that, I'm not qualified to answer the air quality down there and the air movement. I'm assuming there's air handlers that must exercise down there and rotate the air. However, I don't know. But if it's a concern, I would err on the problem of not going down there unless you can show that you can overturn the air. Mark?
What I would say to that is that if there is a concern that there's not adequate ventilation, or if the ventilation system that is there not working properly, that the look to have a technician come in, do an evaluation of the ventilation system there. That way, the evaluation will show what there is for ventilation there, and if it's adequately sized and adequately.
Okay.
That would be the only way to know if we have adequate ventilation.
Okay. And then as far as the clerk's office, keeping in mind that it's not just the clerk and the town administrator that's in that building, and there's 3 other people that are beyond there that may not feel as comfortable. Given that we have those plexiglass dividers now, and it seems as though there's about 12 feet inside of that door before the counter. So if we were to put a sign on the door that said no more than 2 people allowed in the lobby at one time, and then we closed either the hallway door or we roped that hallway off, would it be acceptable for Tim to reopen just the clerk's portion of the office?
Yep, I met with Tim, and maybe he doesn't recall that, it was a week ago. But we actually went out with our measuring devices and we measured and with Tim and Tom, and you're absolutely correct. I suggested that we put some, as everyone's doing, marks of 6-foot marks away that help people remind them that they've got to do that. So we did that. We also, Tim becomes the receptionist, if you will. Everybody coming in there would be screened by Tim or by who's ever in there by doing the questionnaire and or temperatures and that. And then we suggested that if this person was a walk-in that didn't have an appointment with one of the other 3 people, but Tim would make a phone call to them and saying, hey, this person, X person is here to see you. And then I'm assuming that they've got a procedure where they would either meet with him out in the hall or whatever is best for them. I do know that both those offices have been set up with plexiglass shields. And I know that if you were going to the treasurer's office, clearly that 6-foot distance is easily obtainable. And I would assume the other offices could also do that. So do I think you could do that? Absolutely you could, following the guidelines, doing everything that we suggested, doing the temperatures with everyone, and a mask. And if they don't have a mask, you have the opportunity to either provide one or deny them from coming in. It's that simple. It sounds simple, however, sometimes maybe not. I think they're still doing lots of things by appointments. And as far as just walk-ins, I think, again, if you go to the stores now and stores are opened, you're walking in and they're encouraging everything that we just talked about. So do I think you could do that? I do. However, it's more up to, again, I think we've laid out a procedure following the guidelines with Tom and Tim. I think that everything is there, and it's now up to the administration and the board to decide, along with employees, to feel that out. Whether you wanted to test drive it by saying 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 12 to noon, or 12 to noon, that's a good time.
Perfect. That's perfect.
So you could do stuff like that other towns I know are doing, 3 or 4 hours a day, that other than appointments. So I don't know if I answered your question or confused it more.
You did, yep. Sandy, is that something that we're in a position to discuss this evening, or should we discuss that? I mean, it's 3 weeks before our next meeting, and I'm just curious if
I think we should discuss it with the people in the office,
okay.
because both of them have the right to make that decision without us.
Fair. Okay, perfect. We'll send an email and start that conversation then. Fantastic. Mark or David? Oh, Jean, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I'm still wrestling with the building capacity. And has that changed? I mean, it was being 25% of your, legal maximum. Do you know where that's at?
That has not changed. That is still, however, the number 25 is also been put into that. So 25 people can be in a meeting together. However, you have to have the physical space to stay the 6 foot apart. So given, we didn't go into the library, Gene. We stopped at the door. We didn't go in there. We did the hallways and the rest of the building. So again, answering your question, it is 25%, a maximum of 25. I don't think you could get 25 people in your part of the building that would be 6 feet apart.
Well, I was told by state people that we are considered one building, even though we're broken up. So that number is for the whole building.
Yeah, there's a lot of pros and arguments about being one building. Buildings, typically, the way we look at that, it is one building for electric, heating, and all that, but it's a separate code that allows egress and how you get in and out of that building.
Yeah.
So you can't use the whole entire building as a 25%, in my estimation for this.
Yeah, I mean, they gave an example of being in a situation and there were actually other agencies and they were all counted. The capacity was for all of those other sections.
Yeah.
So,
And truly, I think that in this application that the library is a separate building to, even though you use the same entrance, you do not have access to the rest of that building for the public if it's locked up. You know,
Right.
you can't get into any other place other than the lobby. The lobby
Right.
could be considered part of it. The lobby is considered part of it when we looked at the distancing for the town hall part.
So I guess I still would like to maybe say, what would our 25% of the capacity over there is, because I don't want up to 25 people in there.
No, and you don't have,
No way.
no. Why don't I make a point to meet with you at the library and we can discuss and look
Okay.
at that whole thing. Why don't?
Yeah, maybe do some measuring. You can figure it out, but I can't measure by myself.
No, between the
Right.
two of us, we'll get
Thank
this
you.
right.
Can I ask,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a couple questions?
By all means, please.
Are there any plans of the building that are available?
Well, you know, oops, I'm sorry, I'm stepping in here, if that's okay, Mr.
No, go ahead. I don't have an answer.
It was recommended that, and I forgot about this till just now, that probably related to the insurance on the building, that there should be dimensions and a plan. So I think I would need to get in touch with Cindy and see if there's something with her.
Typically, when there's a building, commercial building like that, there's construction plans, and part of the design is the occupant loads or the separate spaces within a building. For instance, you know, there's a design occupant load for the library. There's a design occupant load for the lower floor. And those are typically noted on those construction plans. And I think if you could find those plans, you might be able to find that information and have those numbers, and then you can just take 25% of those numbers, and that should cover you for COVID-19.
I'm
Sandy,
almost
I see your hand up.
that the insurance might also need those numbers.
Those
They
plans are,
may.
those
Yeah.
plans are downstairs in the lower vault. Clerk has them.
Okay,
Mark, did you hear Sandy that Tim would have those in the lower vault?
Yes, I did. And if, you know, if you'd like me to look at the plans with you to find the information or go over dimensions or whatever, I'd be more than happy to do that with you.
okay.
Mark,
All
did
right.
you have any other questions?
Nope, that was just, I wanted to talk about the plans for the building.
Sure, sure. Does anybody have any questions for Mark or David? Seeing, oh, Brana, go ahead.
It's not, it's on the subject of returning to meeting in the select board room. I would prefer not to go in there, but I want to continue to come to meetings. If we could somehow consider continuing Zoom or something like that.
So I had discussed that if we did this, we certainly have to recognize that everybody's comfort level is different. And because we want more participation from the community in these meetings, it would be my suggestion that we would also continue to have Zoom set up as a secondary option.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I thank you, sir. Usually you guys hang out for a little bit. Mark, we are going to discuss the camping a little bit later. I know you had some concerns about that or some comments that you wanted to have heard. So if you'd like to hang around, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Okay, I'll stay around.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you kicking out, Chief? All right.
No, I'm hanging out for a bit.
Okay. So now we will hear from Seth. Go ahead.
Right. Well, thanks for having me. Before I forget, I want to make sure that I thank Jean for the masks that she made and dropped off for us. Those are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Good. They were.
They will get put to to use. Oh, sorry about the glare there. And also, real quick, Munson, I wanted to let you know that the kiosk is all set for you guys for the cycling committee. We'll actually get that to the town garage tomorrow, so it'll be over there whenever you guys decide you want to put that in.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure. As probably most are aware, or maybe are not, the pool is set to open this Friday, which we're excited to be able to do. We didn't think that we didn't necessarily know if this day would come, so we're happy to have it. You know, things are going to look a little bit different, as we've talked about. To start out the summer anyways, we'll take no more than 20 patrons at a time. Gathering size of 25 is permitted, and it takes 5 staff members to run the pool. So we'll be looking at 20 patrons at a time. We'll open for two windows during the day, 1 to 3 and 3:30 to 5:30 for Vernon families only. So that's 40 residents of town that will be able to use the pool per day. And it'll be $1 a piece. There'll be no season passes. There'll be, you know, it'll be $1 a day. So you can start calling at 10 o'clock in the morning for a reservation to the rec line, 254-9251. We'll need your name, your address, and the phone number, and then you can come swimming. You will have a health screening. You know, each time you come in, a non-contact thermometer, and a couple quick questions. Unfortunately, this year we will not be able to provide deck chairs or you know, flotation devices of any kind, but patrons are welcome to bring their own. They'll bring them with them, take them out. We do ask that you come ready to swim wearing your swimsuit. Bathrooms will be available, but the changing stations and the showers will not. And really that decision is based on just the amount of cleaning that needs to take place. You know, and a relatively short period of time, you know, between that 3 and 3:30 window where we close and then reopen again. So from that standpoint, you know, we have a plan in place, and that's the plan as of Tuesday, as of today. And as regulations change, we will monitor them closely and adapt. If we're able to have larger gathering sizes, you know, we'll see what that will look like, and hopefully we can offer a little bit more. Whether or not that's you know, a couple hours a week where it's strictly for, you know, adult swim, or something along those lines, you know, we'll explore all options really at that point. But right now, this is our plan, and we feel that you know, it's doable. I'm not going to pretend like there's not going to be some headaches necessarily, because I'm sure there will. But there's going to be some things we haven't thought of. We've never done this before, but you know, we'll work through them and we'll find a way. We've got a fantastic staff this summer. We had a really good staff meeting the other night, and I feel like we have everybody on the same page and they're ready to go. So we'll give it a shot.
Awesome. Any questions for Seth?
Great job.
Yeah, thank you. I know that this has not been easy. There's been times where you've hidden your stress better than others, but I know that it's greatly appreciate
We got a lot of good people that are working on this together. It makes it a lot easier when you can rely on your team. So
yeah, awesome. And
cool.
You're going to stick around.
Do you want me to stick around,
please,
for the town forest discussion, or did we want to have that briefly, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is close to the top there. Bear with me for a couple of minutes. Let's get through our bills and warrants, the approval of minutes. So we'll hear Gordon, and then we'll go right into that. Okay. All right.
Sure.
So approval of minutes for June 2nd.
Move we accept them as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Ms. Carr. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. All right. Bills and warrants, please.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve payment of the following warrant. 25T accounts payable, $134,345.58. And that includes the school rental payment. So it's 22S payroll, $7,076.63. 23S payroll, $7,898.77.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the bills and warrants. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, perfect. Unless anybody on the board should object, I would like to bring Gordon Christensen up for the mature bond. Seeing no objection, Gordon, please go ahead.
Sure. This week we had a Home Depot corporate bond that was called early. That put $100,000 back into town coffers. I checked with Cindy this afternoon, and she has no need of the $100,000. There's presently about $394,000 prior to, or $344,000 in cash in that account. So she was absolutely fine with reinvesting the $100,000. I found a 2.76% federal farm credit bond. And just for those of you who may not know what that is, let me just give you a brief description of this bond. This federal farm credit bank bond, they're part of the farm credit system. It's a cooperatively owned nationwide system of banks and associations that provide services to farmers, ranchers, and producers, or harvesters of aquatic products, rural homeowners, and agricultural and rural cooperatives. This bond pays semi-annually. It'll send the town interest checks twice a year. It is non-callable, and it is rated AA+. So the best rating, credit rating you're going to get on a bond is a AAA. This is AA+. So it's a very, very secure bond. And same procedure as we've been doing for the past 5 years or whatever. If you have any questions, Cindy's good with reinvesting the $100,000 into this federal farm credit bond.
Gene, your thoughts?
I'm good with that.
Jeff?
I like it.
Sandy?
Farm credit.
Yeah.
Sandy, are you good with that?
I'm great with it.
And Michael?
I like it.
All right.
You guys are so happy tonight. That's wonderful.
So far.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
We just got started.
what
Gordon.
happens, Mr. Christensen, what happens with the interest that has been earned on the bond that was called? Does that roll with the $100,000?
The interest.
So the total,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the total amount to be rolled over is more than $100,000.
That's correct. The interest goes right into the same account. So every interest check that comes in goes right to Cindy and is put in the account.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Sandy, do we need a vote on that, or are we good?
We should, so moved.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Dunkley to reallocate the funds as presented by Mr. Christensen. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Christensen, you are all set, sir. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, all of you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you too.
Good night.
Good night.
Let's see. Brana, what do you got?
Thank you very much for adding us to the agenda. I've got Ann Manwaring
Yes.
from Deerfield Valley Communication Union District. I also, Munson's here and Tom's here from Planning Commission and also from Friends of Vernon Center, because this is not just about bringing fiber optics to the town, it is also about economic development and that benefit too. So I'm going to let Ann explain what Deerfield Valley CUD is, and if anybody has questions or you can ask her. First of all, before we do that, did you all get the town of Brattleboro letter and the memo from the Selectboard in Brattleboro? Did that get distributed to the other members, Chris?
I'm trying to plug my computer in. Hold on one second. I believe that I forwarded it, but somebody can correct me if I am wrong on that.
It was from Steve and John.
then I may not have. I thought that I had forwarded the correspondence that I had with that gentleman. I will have to check here as soon as I can figure this out.
Well, I think Anne could explain the basics.
Sure. Would you like me to do that now?
Yes, please.
Well, first, I just want to say it's really nice to be present at a select board meeting. I retired officially from my select board last town meeting after having been on it for many years, so I'm kind of feeling right at home here. Communication union districts were created by the legislature a couple of years ago as a vehicle to extend fiber optic broadband to the rural unserved parts of Vermont. And I will tell you at the past town meeting, March 3rd, I guess it was, 5 towns in Windham County voted to create the CUD. We have since been joined by many others. Brattleboro, I believe, is considering it tonight. And then we tomorrow night are having our monthly governing board meeting. I don't know whether you folks want to act that fast or not. If you do, we could also add you. And I think that would bring us up to about 14 towns in Windham County. And at the same time, and actually prior to the creation of the CUD, Windham Regional Commission was awarded what's called a BIG grant, which is a broadband initiative grant, to do a feasibility study and a business plan for a CUD. Basically, in their mind, it was all of the Windham County Planning Commission region. And then we got created, and we have basically become the essential vehicle for carrying that out. We've created, Windham Regional has finished its feasibility study. It is on their website if you folks would like to go look at it. You can find it, or I'll be glad to. Brown has got it there, okay. Well, you can share it with the folks in Vernon, okay? But it's also on Windham Regional's website. And now they're undertaking to do the business plan, which essentially they expect to be finished by, say, the end of August. And so our basic mission is to bring high-speed synchronous, I'll tell you what that is in a minute, fiber optic broadband to all of the underserved and unserved parts of our member towns, which we hope will continue to grow in number. And some of our towns already have large parts of the town that are served by other cable companies or other services. Some of our towns have no service whatsoever of any kind. So we have a broad range of problems to solve in order to actually bring rural parts, our southern Vermont rural community members into what amounts to the 21st century, if you will. Synchronous means it's the same speed up as it is the same speed down. And the states has set a policy of wanting to work toward 100 up and 100 down. The high speed is now defined at the federal level as 25 up and 3 down, and that's considered high speed broadband. And most of the cable companies will deliver at least that, and some will vary a little bit from it. But our goal is to extend the fiber, and it will be capable of doing the 100-100. We hope also, we haven't done the engineering or the planning or any of that yet, but the policy is that we would hope to have the capacity be much higher than that. For example, for businesses, there are businesses who need much faster than 100-100. You know, just as a home person user, it's kind of hard for me to understand that need, but that is indeed a business need. And it's the kind of thing that can happen in anybody's house on any road, anywhere in Vermont, which certainly is some of economic framework that we all would like to attract to our towns or grow in our towns from our own townspeople. So that's it. We're run solely on volunteers at the moment. We are hugely searching to acquire some funding sources with extraordinary help from the state and the public service department. There's a lot going on there now. Where our problem right now is trying to figure out how to deal with it all. So, Brana?
Oh, no, when you're done, I want to read the mission statement from Deerfield Valley.
Yeah, please do.
The mission of the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District is to provide affordable, reliable, high-speed internet service which will support economic development and expand educational opportunities within the district. The district's primary focus is to own and manage a fiber optic network that provides internet speeds in excess of the FCC's minimum definition of broadband for the foreseeable future. The district's primary geographic focus is areas within member towns that are not served at these speeds. The district seeks to deliver service to businesses and households at prices that are not served at these speeds. The district shall apply prudent management processes to contract for necessary services at the lowest possible cost and minimize long-term dependence on any commercial vendor for an essential capability. I would like to add, if I may, because I know how careful our select board is about expenses and adding to taxes. This project is not going to be funded by property taxes or any taxes at all. I also want to say that Vernon, like Brattleboro, has been in the past considered well-served. We have pockets like Brattleboro that are unserved or underserved. However, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that really all we are is adequately served. And that's why, if you don't mind, Munson, Munson and I, considering that no one else is working toward this right now because our third person is moving to Burlington. That is why we think it is important, very important, that Vernon Select Board approve at some point, and hopefully tonight, and it will be in the minutes, that we join this communication union district. It costs nothing, and the benefits are immense. Munson?
Just, yeah, I think Ann can probably clarify it. It's, as far as my understanding is that the select board, if it chooses to ask to join, then the towns that are joined will, in their meeting, decide whether they would welcome Vernon into the CUD. I assume that they would. It's to everybody's advantage. But as Brana said, by state law, you cannot use any taxpayer funds. It would all have to be
revenue bonds based on either private or public funding. Yeah, and if you look at it, while we are technically qualified, because most places in Vernon have the possibility of 100 meg gig down, and I have 7 up, even though I have 200 down. The possibility of going to 100 down and 100 up is what's really important, because that's the future.
And that's what's going to, so we're technically underserved by the state's hope to get to 100 both ways.
And
So
just,
go ahead, Ian, I'm sorry.
okay, just to give you a little bit more of our structure, we have a governing board, and when a town joins us, when a town select board votes to have us join, we ask that the town designate a representative and one or more alternatives, and they will be a member of the governing board of the CUD. CUDs are actually municipalities in the same way that a fire district or a water district is a municipality. But we are specifically precluded in the enabling legislation from using any local tax revenues. We are basically have to run like a business, which municipalities don't have to generally, but we will have to run like a business. We will have to have sufficient revenue to cover our expenses. And so that's our game plan.
So you're not here to ask for any funds. You're here to ask for us to join your club and give you 2 members of our community. Is that essentially what you're?
Exactly. We would be
Okay.
happy. We would be very happy.
It would be better.
3 would be better. So Brana and Munson, obviously I'm going to ask if the 2 of you are up for that and willing to do that.
I would be willing.
And I would like, this is totally, I haven't talked to him at all, Michael Root as a representative from, if you have time, Michael, of the select board to also be, because I've been impressed by his tech savviness. So if he would agree, so then we would have a rep who is a voting rep and then the 2 alternates.
An alternate would vote if the voting rep was unable to attend. But we need people and skilled people to work in our committee systems to get this organization up and going. So that would be great.
Let me ask you, Anne, just to be clear, the committee system, those people who are working in the various committees, do they have to be voting members or can they be outside the system?
They could also be outside the system. We're looking for, just people with skill sets. We have a finance and audit committee. We need some people with enough financial wherewithal in their heads to be able to figure out where are all these grant sources and know enough about them to be able to help write grant applications for them. We're ultimately going to need an accountant because someday we're going to have money in the bank and have to do something with it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How, at the time that you get up and running, how will you be establishing a fee structure and how will that enterprise fund work?
Well, we will be using market guides, and obviously we're going to have a fee structure that covers our expenses. There's already existing CUD called CV fiber, which is, EC fiber, East Central Vermont Fiber. You can go and, I'm sure you can find their website if you go on. But it's the same kind of principles that any business would have as they set up their framework for delivering their service at a price that is market friendly, has to be market friendly, but that covers their expenses. We hope also in the course of doing all of that, we recognize that there are a lot of folks who simply can't afford even your basic rates to access this. And we hope that we can figure out some strategies to find some funding sources that could support offering some lower rates for, for example, families that are on the free and reduced lunch at school or things like that. I don't know if that wholly answers your question.
It starts to. Thank you very much.
I think the point to be made is no one, while we're trying to reinvent the system for Vermont, nobody's reinventing the wheel. We're not looking to do a huge different thing from the rest of the world. And there are many different systems throughout the country that have come up with ways to do it. So part of the plan is taking a look at a variety of ways to do it that are already established.
One of the values of having the mechanism be this municipality is that gives us access to certain kinds of bond markets that we would not otherwise have access to.
Right.
It's very expensive to build all this out. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But,
About $30,000 a mile is
Yeah.
what it costs. So
Yep.
Vernon, it would cost $2 million.
Yep.
All right. Sandy, any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Jean,
Nope.
Jeff?
Not any questions. I guess I had a couple thoughts. I think the last 3
Did I
months
freeze?
have emphasized how crucial access to the internet is for business and for remote education. I think, again, the last 3 months have really pointed out that internet access isn't a luxury, it's a necessity for society. And I think tonight, I strongly support joining. I think we ought to vote to join tonight. And although our community is adequately served, I'd rather our community be better served.
the goal is to have everyone served.
I cut out there for a second. I don't know what happened to my internet, but if I could get some better internet, that'd be great.
Timely.
Yeah. Michael, you were queried in there. Your thoughts?
I'd like to see the stuff that was supposed to email out to us and read all that first.
Yeah, and I just checked my email. I don't even have that, so I'm not sure who that was sent to.
All right. Do you want me to send it right now, or or how do you want me to do it? I mean, I can do it right now.
Yeah, that's fine. So Sandy, Jean, Jeff, what do we want to do this evening? Do we want to look at this information? Do we want to throw ourselves into that group, seeing as how there's no financial obligation to that, and we have some volunteers that would sign that for us? What are your thoughts?
Just to make sure it goes both ways. If you can decide to withdraw, and then the rest of the towns vote to let you go or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should go ahead and vote tonight to become involved. Again, with the idea that if we learn something that makes us uncomfortable, we can say, well, we're backing out at this time. As long as that's the deal, the agreement, I'm fine.
But do they have the right to vote not to let us out?
Technically.
Technically, yes. I guess you're correct. However, I've never been faced with that question before. But
Well,
Cool.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
once you take on obligation, once you take on financial obligation as a group, then getting out, if the town chose to get out, any town chose to get out, you'd have to buy out that your percentage of that obligation. So, you know, the other question is there a weighted vote on this? Do the big guys who have more service area or more numbers to be served have a weighted vote on the board?
no, one vote, one,
Okay.
one vote, one town.
Thank you.
And I will tell you, in this case, the big towns are not the dominant players. It's the little towns who
Right.
have no service at all that where we're probably going to focus our earlier efforts.
Jean, your thoughts?
I feel, to continue the economic development of the town and that it's important to get on board with this.
So,
Of course, I support it. I have fiber optic in the library, so I've been a big supporter.
How do you like it, Jean?
It's very fast. And no issues with bandwidth and things slowing down when everybody goes online and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Michael?
I would just feel more comfortable reading all the rules, not what we're getting ideas what people think it is. I want to read something first before we sign up, and I want to be informed.
I just forwarded you all, Michael, I had some trouble getting your email address, which took me a little bit longer than I should have. But I just forwarded you all Stephen John's email with the 2 documents that concern Brattleboro, but they concern Brattleboro's joining tonight, or the vote that they're taking tonight. So you should take a look at that.
Well, we would welcome you whenever you're ready to join.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the only reason tonight makes a little bit of sense is that we're meeting tomorrow night, and so we could complete this tomorrow. If all we would have to have is the record recorded in your minutes that you voted to join tonight. We'll have to follow up with a form and things like that, but which we can do at a later date.
Ian, can you tell me how often does your group meet? You have a meeting tomorrow, but when's the next meeting?
We meet monthly.
Okay.
Every month on Wednesday. I believe it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month.
Okay. So unless anybody objects from the board, given Michael's request to be better informed, I would ask that we table the decision on this until the first meeting in July.
I'm fine with that.
Which would be the 7th of July, because July starts on Wednesday, the 1st.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I knew we had 3 weeks off here, so.
And I will send you the link for the feasibility study if you want, from the from the broadband project.
Okay.
And we also have a website, which is dvfiber.org.
Okay. So, Ann, if we were to make that decision on the 7th of July, then that would be in enough time for, we would be in prior to your July meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. All right.
I
and I appreciate you being here with us this evening, and certainly Brana and Munson and Tom for your involvement. And you guys stepped up right from the beginning of this, brought it forward, and have been a part of it. So I appreciate you guys being involved in that and being invested in this and keeping us informed so that we can make better decisions that progress our town. So.
It was Munson's idea, and I joined. Yeah. And I joined because there was no woman on the committee. and the guys were talking this language that I didn't understand, 100 up, 100 down. And I just said, wait a minute, I'm a civilian. And
So what we would be happy to send, if you would like, I guess Brana and Munson, I can get in touch with you tomorrow, Brana, and we can send you a link to join the meeting. Even though you're not a member, the public is welcome at our Zoom, so you can listen to all that's going on, if that's okay. And anyone else on the board who would be interested, Brana, I'll leave it to you to spread that wider.
Thank you. Will do.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we will make sure that you are on the agenda for the 7th of July. Brana and Munson, if you'd like to join us for that meeting, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Of course.
Right.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ann.
Bye.
Thank you,
With-
Anne. Thank you, Chris.
As much as I enjoy select board meetings, I think I will leave yours now.
Lucky you.
I'll join you in leaving.
Good night.
All right. Does anybody on the board object if we bring up the forest camping discussion now? We've asked Mark to hang on with us and Seth is still here.
That's fine.
Seeing no objection, so we brought this up the last meeting. We had received the email that kind of laid it all out for us. Somebody had taken it and ran with it and gave us some things to think about. I went for a hike in the town forest the other day, which is unbelievable. Seth, I don't know who you've got helping you up there, but it looks amazing. And it is, for me personally, completely underutilized. That is my first time ever being up to that point. Other than hunting season, I don't spend a whole lot of time out there, and that's usually just kind of cutting from one spot to another. Having said that, I kind of struck out finding a reasonable location for a campsite up there. That doesn't mean that there isn't locations for it, but if we start talking about outhouses or having Steve Septic deal with anything, it certainly becomes a problem. It's a little bit harder to monitor anything that's going on up there, and with us not having our own police department that would be available overnight, that's a little concerning up in there. Having said that, it was mentioned, I think Seth mentioned it to me, that there was originally some plans for some campsites out behind the recreation department. I went for a walk out there, and I think that there's some suitable places out there. I think the biggest cost that we could potentially see up front would be that we may have to consider putting some more security cameras down towards the pavilion, because I believe we would have to leave those restrooms open 24/7. But it's much more accessible, much easier to get into should there be any medical emergencies, things like that. I think that there's some, it warrants a discussion to have it out there. I did reach out to Jesse, who had put all of the time into the plan. I certainly did not want to step on his toes. He said that the people that are offering the money and the materials to do this would still support that. And so we're not losing anything there. We're not losing our volunteer base. And I also spoke with Paul and Mary Miller. They thought camping in Vernon was a fantastic idea. They wanted to make sure that we looked at every avenue before we just started plopping them up into the town forest, but they were not opposed to the town forest as long as we did it the right way. So that is the information that I have on that. Seth, do you have anything else?
No, I mean, I think I agree with what you had to say. I definitely think thanking Jesse and the businesses that have supported his proposal is certainly warranted. Anytime someone puts the time and effort into something like that, obviously we owe due diligence. I mean, I think you've touched on a lot of bases. You know, the restrooms, the policing of it, you know, kind of the daily maintenance aspect of it that most state parks have is not something we can necessarily provide at the town forest area. So if we did explore what was once part of the town plan and looked at potentially some sites, you know, behind the pool area, we'd have the parking, we'd have the trash availability there, as well as potentially restrooms depending on the time of the year. I think that that's probably the wise decision to explore that area first.
And I think that would give us a chance to see how that goes. And if we have problems, it's one, easier to shut it down while it's right there. And two, it would let us know if we should be looking out into the town forest or anywhere else in town for that matter. Mark, I know that you had requested a few minutes to speak on this. You had some potential concerns about this. So go ahead, please.
Actually, thank you. Actually, I had some questions in possible concerns. However, questions you've pretty much discussed here this evening that relates to the restroom facilities, the rubbish, garbage, in the overall sanitary conditions. I have not seen the overall email that contains the plan, so I don't know all the details about the plan. Though what I can say is that you have to prepare, or you should prepare, for some unforeseen potential problems. You are planning for rubbish, garbage, it sounds like. It sounds like you're planning for restroom facilities. And you've also voiced questions on how and who would be monitoring the sites in the areas. Those are all foreseen potential problems, but the unforeseen potential problems are the ones that you have to think about as well. And what I mean by that is that tent city. I understand that there's good intent, but there are people out there who are living in tents, and they're looking for places to set up their tents and a place to call their home. And you can't fault them for that. However, a good deed by providing these campsites could lead to these potential problems and create a tent city. And typically when tent city gets set up, there are additional problems with drug-related, crime-related, things of that nature. So I don't want to spoil the plans. However, I wanted to bring these potential problems to your attention so that you can make a well-informed decision.
I believe, I'm sorry to cut you off, Mark. Seth, I believe that in that proposal, there was minimal fees to be able to utilize those sites. Is that correct?
I believe it was $8 a night for one of the new sites and maybe $15 a night for one of the shelter areas they were looking to construct.
Okay. So Mark, do you think that that would change anything as far as the potential tent city? And obviously we know that people can find a way in there and they can do whatever they want. But is that more of a safeguard that would potentially give us more control over that?
Well, I think having, the designated sites is great. And I think that's a good way to do it. However, once the word gets out that there's tent sites set up, I believe there's going to be people coming to the area to set their tents up outside of those designated areas for a place to call their home. And again, I don't want to spoil the idea. I just want to bring these potential problems to your attention, because once these places are set up and established, it's very difficult to dismantle and have people move on.
So you're talking about places outside of the setup tent site?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm talking about people coming up who are homeless that set up tents to call their home. I don't know if any of you watched Northwoods Law,
Nope.
but that was just on the other day, and the Hinsdale Police Department, along with the New Hampshire Fish and Game, had to deal with a tent city just across from the bridges from Brattleboro. That was state-owned land, and they had to move those people along. But again, these are unanticipated or unforeseen potential problems.
Wow.
Well, that always, you ruined everything, Mark.
No,
we invited you to stay,
Yeah.
and this is.
No, and again, as long as you establish a plan to deal with this type of situation, it can be done. But I think you have to think and create a plan to address those types of issues.
Mark, you bring up a good point. It is definitely something we should consider. It's been a few years now, but we did have to remove a family who had set up a pseudo home such as you mentioned. Actually, it's in the very area that I'm proposing that we explore. But it was they thought it was a public park and it was permitted, was what they had told me. But and they were great about it. Okay, yep, we'll pick up and we'll head out. But it's bringing back a memory. That's.
So see, there was a situation, and it came to your attention, and you addressed it quickly, and it didn't escalate to further problems.
Correct.
But if there's nobody monitoring this area on a regular basis, people can go into the woods a little bit deeper outside of the designated areas and set camp up without anybody knowing it for an extended period of time. And then before you know it, you have several tents there.
Sure.
So Seth,
I'm not trying to be negative.
I know you're not, Mark. I know you're not. I know.
No, that's
No, you have to plan for all. You have to try to plan for as many contingencies as you possibly can. Yeah, you have to.
Yep. And without going too far to the other conversations that we've been having about potentially disc golf back there. I mean, I think that at some point with increased foot traffic back there, that there's a certain amount of community policing that would go into that area as well. Whereas I think that we would be alerted to things much sooner. I also think that Jesse being the fire warden, that it wouldn't be unrealistic to think that he would be taking some trips through there, one, to make sure that it was safe to have a campfire, and two, that maybe everything is still on the up and up, especially since his business is going to be one of the sponsors. So, so I certainly understand what you're saying, and it's tough, and it sucks that we have to think about those things now, because here we were with a good plan to give families something to do, especially during this social distancing thing, and now we have to worry about that. But I appreciate you bringing it forward, because I had not even given that a thought, thinking that we're immune to that kind of thing down here in Vernon.
Yeah, and I hate to break the bad news to you, but we are not immune.
Yeah.
To anything as we see in the news these days. Small town USA are seeing a lot of problems that the larger communities see and experience. So again, this was not meant to be negative. This was not meant to squash any plans. This was the intent was to bring to your attention that there could be potential problems that are not anticipated because we're looking at all the good here.
Yep.
And, unfortunately, with the good comes some negative as well. And, in addition to what we just spoke about is that this is also an increased workload for the community as well. For the rec department, and you'd mentioned, about Jesse, the fire warden, looking for, safe places for outside fires, things of that nature, so that could be an increase in workload for the community as well. So.
Thank you, Mark. So Seth, what do you think the next step is? I guess my question is, do you think that this warrants further discussion? That this is potentially feasible if we get all of the right answers and we have everything laid out? Or do you think that this is a little ambitious given everything else?
No, I mean, I think that the proposal was for that specific location in the town forest. So if we're shifting the proposal, I think that a walkthrough and also, with, Mark's thoughts in mind, it warrants further discussion. I guess I don't want to sit here tonight and say, no, I don't think we should do it, because I just think it warrants further discussion, and let's take a look at it and just see what, the shifting from one location to the other, what that would look like for everybody. I'm fine with that approach if it works for everybody else.
Okay. So to the select board, does anybody, I saw you, Mark, I'll get you in 1 second. How does everybody feel about a walkthrough? And maybe not everybody wants to attend that. Totally up to you guys. I think that it would, that we should invite Jesse on that walkthrough as well. Your thoughts, Sandy?
Yeah, I would trust Seth.
That's a lot of pressure.
Good.
Don't you dare let her down.
Try my best.
Jean?
Yeah, I think that it would be important to develop a really complete plan, you know, as part of this process. I don't want to abandon it, but I think we need to develop a plan and try to get input on what scenarios we may face and how we would deal with it, and take it from there.
Okay.
You know, and have a plan to deal with the kind of things that Mark is bringing up that we really hadn't thought of.
Yep.
And that will help us decide, is this really going to be feasible? Is this too much manpower involved? You know, what is this looking like?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Michael, your thoughts?
Here I am. Yeah, no, I agree with everybody else. I also was wondering, since it wasn't the plan at one time, we looked into the insurance about it all.
All right.
Valid point.
Jeff, your thoughts?
I appreciate Mark bringing up something that it's unfortunate, but I never would have thought of that. I mean, I'm not a big fan of camping to begin with, and I'm glad I have a house to live in. But I think it is a very big, valid, or it's a concern that if we're going to move forward with this, it has to be appropriately addressed. And like Sandy, I trust Seth to do the walkthrough. I don't need to go through that.
Pressure grows.
More pressure.
That's right.
You can do it.
I'll try.
Mark, you had your hand up. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer, my time to do the walkthrough and help develop a plan. Because I do think, this is a positive thing for Vernon. I just think that it needs to be a detailed plan like Jean had mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would agree too. I truthfully do not want to enter into something that, right away we go, oh no, what did we do? Somebody, came to us, Jesse came to us with, a lot of effort put in, and I think we owe him due diligence as town officials to explore all options. I think that's what we're here for. So, whether it works out or not, I think we owe the due diligence.
All right. So with that in mind, I will send an email out tomorrow to Jesse, Seth, and Mark. I will copy the board on that, and let's try and set up a time to do a walkthrough that works best for the three of you, and we'll take it from there. Does that work for everybody?
That works.
Works for me.
All right, so let's do that.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Seth, I think we're all set with you, sir. Sorry to hold you up for so long.
Oh, that's all good. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Are you all set with me?
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate you hanging around, even though you ruined our plans, but I mean.
I probably saved our neck.
Yeah, we never would have thought about it, so I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you for hanging around.
Thank you, and have a nice evening.
All right, you too.
Hey, Chris, I want
Yeah.
to point one thing out. Just now I got an error message on my screen saying that your internet connection is unstable. Okay, so I'm just saying.
You sure it
Good
didn't
now,
say
though.
you were unstable? It said your internet was unstable?
I don't know. It said my internet connection, but yeah, me too.
All right.
But I'm good now.
So we had Tyler Hill Road speed on the agenda last week, or at the last meeting we spoke about Pond Road. Since that meeting, I've gotten emails and text messages about Huckle Hill. Part of it is the time that we're in. I don't buy if we had 24/7 police coverage that it would solve this problem. I have been in touch with Mark Anderson quite a bit about it. And Sergeant Norton was trying to work with him and try and see what we could do. So I know that Tom reached out to the Wyndham Regional as well as the Sheriff's Department about doing a traffic study. And I believe, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that that is underway, the traffic study with the Wyndham Regional.
Well, the Wyndham Regional is ready to go. They can get going on it right after they're scheduling to start right at the end of the month of the 1st of July. I want to talk to the sheriff to see if there are any differences in the types of studies they do. I think the sheriff looks at things on they'll do the counts and then they look at rolling stops and stuff like that. I'd like to see if there are any differences. I think the commission does these. It doesn't cost the town any. It's part of their, it's part of what they do. They get transportation money for this, and they're ready to go. So I just want to see if there's any major differences between the two. I don't think there are.
And I'd follow that up by saying that the Sheriff's Department one is actually included in our contract, so that would not be an additional charge to us either. So no matter which way we go here, we're covered. So, yes.
Have you been up by Memorial Park lately?
No, I haven't actually.
They have speed humps.
Yes, they had those out last year and then they take them up for the winter.
Right, and they work very well.
Is that a private road?
Nope.
Nope.
I mean, no.
No, it's a town road.
I would check with VLCT to see if that's an okay thing to do.
Well, I mean, Brattleboro did it, and I would assume that they probably checked that out. But, I mean, we can certainly find that out. Where would you think to put those, Sandy?
Well, by the pool, maybe before the pool and then after the pool, before Huckle Hill. So I think two would cover that area.
Okay.
I just know that you have to just about stop to go over them. That would certainly.
Yeah.
That's right. They do have them over by the park.
Yeah.
Chris, can you just take a minute and elaborate a little bit about what feedback you received, concerns, what exactly, I mean, I know roughly what we're talking about, but can you elaborate a little bit what we're talking about?
Yeah. So on Tyler Hill, Miss Crossman up there has to cross Tyler Hill to get her mail. And because you've got the straightaway coming over the 91 bridge and her house is right on that corner after the bridge, she has some horror stories of people that have kind of swerved to miss her. The most recent message I got was that there was 4 motorcycles. One of them had to go around her. The other 2 were able to miss her on the other side, but she just stood on the yellow line and didn't know what else to do. Huckle Hill, we've gotten 2 complaints, one from up closer to the Basin Road, one down prior to the sharp corner, saying that the people that are coming down Huckle Hill, it appears that they are actually trying to jump off from the little humps that are in the road with the speed that they're going. And then, of course, Pond Road. And I will say that yesterday on Pond Road, I was almost driven off from the road by a tractor trailer truck that was towing a trailer and was easily going between well over 50. And that was in the area of, well, Jeff, your road and Sandy's road. It was right in that area. So I think that it is a legitimate concern. I think that it's something that we need to look at. I have been hearing from some people that, oh, well, we tried to talk to so-and-so years ago and we were told that we couldn't do anything, or, oh, that's not how this works type of stuff. So some people that just felt like they've been brushed off over the years. Last week when we had Sheriff Anderson here and he was talking about stop signs, I didn't know if putting stop signs at the Franklin Road and Tyler Hill Road intersection, 3 or a 4-way stop there. I can't think of any any other place to put something up there that would help Miss Crossman out. But that at least forces people to be aware of their surroundings and have to stop and start again. So I don't know if that's a realistic idea to try and break up the length of the straightaway that they get there if we throw a stop in the middle of it. Pond Road, we had some ideas about those flashing signs. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, you weren't with us at our last meeting, were you? No, I'm sorry. So Sheriff Anderson had come and spoken and said that those signs that illuminate your speed or flash at you if you're going too fast, he said that the studies on those actually proved that it's something, it was over 90% of people that it actually catches their attention. And the other 10% probably speed up to see what record they can set. But, so that was one idea. He had suggested putting a three-way stop at the bottom of Huckle Hill Road. We had also discussed putting a three-way stop at the intersection of the rec department. So really just trying to figure out how to break up these long straightaways that people are using as racetracks before something happens to one of our
did Mark feel that this was a concern that's happened this year, or has it been building? I mean, to me, it's just anecdotal, but I don't think law enforcement is stopping motorists anymore.
Right.
They just don't want to stop them because of the virus.
Yep.
So if there's no deterrent for a motorist for speeding or doing anything, then we can put up all the signs and flashing lights we can, but without, there's going to be that 10% that if they have no fear of being stopped.
Right.
So I don't want to be defeatist or anything. It's just, I don't know if this is something that's occurring this year or it's been getting worse and worse.
Right. So he did touch on that. He actually, I believe, stopped short of apologizing that we kind of felt like the police weren't doing anything. And he said that that was a misunderstanding between the higher ups and lower level law enforcement. At the beginning of COVID, kind of everybody went hands off, and that wasn't the intent. So COVID has shown an increase in traffic issues because there is that sense of all the cops aren't doing anything. So that part of it, he did express was being seen everywhere. I did speak to him about potentially doing another saturation patrol down here, like when they first took over, and that seemed to have curbed some of it in the very beginning, and then they kind of tapered back and people started getting comfortable again. So that's something else that we can look at.
Well, I mean, you recall back when it was publicly announced what the hours are going to be in town. I mean, to me, that was one of the worst things you can do, is publicly announce these are the hours that there's going to be law enforcement in town.
Right.
So that did a disservice to our town.
And I agree. We have to give him the credit that was under the previous sheriff as well that made that announcement. I will say that sitting here staring out my window, that I've seen the sheriff drive by one time this evening. I've been seeing him come down here quite a bit more. We've been hearing from residents that they saw them on Pond Road. Somebody said, "Oh, it was great to finally see one on Tyler Hill Road."
I saw him this afternoon also on Pond Road.
Yeah. So I think what we're getting now is a receptive sheriff and a receptive sheriff's department that is actually responding when the town reaches out to them with concerns, which is good. I don't think that was the case previously.
But I think it's good to encourage, not necessarily community policing, but if somebody knows a particular individual who is regularly breaking the speed limit and driving unsafely, that they need to inform somebody of a regular pattern by an individual that's speeding.
Yep.
And hopefully that's going to be followed up on it. Certainly like with Ms. Crossman, I would hope there'd be some more regular law patrol on Tyler Hill Road in her area.
And I think that that's what we are seeing a little bit more of is, but it did take, hey guys, we're getting these complaints. I've sent Mark license plates before that people have passed along, and there isn't much. I guess what works best with them is if you can say, hey, the same blue car is every morning at 7 o'clock, they're headed down. And now that happened last year. And Dave Whittle actually signed on early that day, and he was down here at 6:30 to catch them.
Great.
We are starting to see them outside of those hours. I know that that was one of Mark's things, was that he really wanted to change that and keep people guessing because he thought that that would certainly help this issue. So all of those things are in motion. It is, and not to say that Miss Crossman's area isn't of concern and Huckle Hill isn't of concern. The rec area is my concern, and Pond Road with the kids on their bikes and worrying about that. I would much rather make a decision and do something before something terrible happens. Because hopefully my son will start riding his bike somewhere other than this yard soon. But, so, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to step off as interim and step on as a resident for a second, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I haven't seen a speed patrol on Tyler Hill in years. That doesn't mean they're not there when I'm not around them. I haven't seen them. And it's really hard for a patrol car on the straightaway from where Renault used to live, the Trovellini's house, down to the curve, down about where Ed Morse lives. It's really hard to get anybody in there to be hidden to run a speed trap. Someone is going to get killed on that first curve. And going up Franklin Road by the Hardy's farm there are young kids that know their parents are very astute, and they're very, they're watchful. But coming down Franklin Road toward Tyler Hill on that last curve, before you hit the Hardy's house, people are coming down there 45, 50 until they hit the stop sign. I'm waiting for someone someday to end up in my living room. They've already ended up on my front lawn on more than one occasion, and something's got to be done there. That's my complaint as a citizen. It's gotten worse, and it's Friday and Saturday nights.
Sandy?
Yeah,
Just what are your thoughts on this?
I think it needs to stop somehow. That's why I was thinking speed humps. It's not going to solve everything, but something's going to happen, and it's going to cost the life of a child. And that's too late. And
Right.
for Janie to be complaining, that's bad.
Yeah, and we're seeing it in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Gene, what are your thoughts?
Well, I liked the idea of the signs, the speed signs. Now it's just sounding like we need a lot of them. They do catch your attention when you come onto one of those and you're like, oh, I am going too fast. For the person that's conscientious, there's going to be some that are just, there's nothing that's going to stop them, unfortunately. But those signs also came in a bit pricier, I think, than we thought they'd be, unless we can get some kind of...
He actually never emailed me back. I need to follow up with him.
Yeah, some kind of grant or something for community safety, but I'm I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe after listening to Mark and seeing the negative side of things, putting these bumps in the road, I'm thinking, oh, is that going to be the next thing to play on Friday and Saturday nights? You know, let's catch some air. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was thinking by the pool, the signs would be good. Maybe a couple of others on those hills would be helpful.
Michael?
I know Mark or Sheriff Anderson said that what they lost in the last month would take 2 months to gain back. So that's going to affect a lot. I think us looking into some other avenues on our own will be good to show that we care about it. Also, instead of on the lines of speed bumps, they make little dots that just glue to the road that are like a rumble strip to help slow people down in places too. A lot less expensive. That's what I got.
Is that some, Tom, I see you, hold on. Michael, is that similar to like when you're headed into Keene, the rumble strips as you're approaching that first roundabout? Is that kind of what you're referring to?
I'm not familiar with that, but it's like the same thing as what's on the side of the road, except you don't have to have a machine that does it. You just heat them up with a torch and they glue to the road, and your tires are going to feel them when you drive over them, but it's not going to hurt your car. Use them on base all the time before stop signs that were problems. When people were going through the intersections, we put them there to warn them that to look up, there's a stop sign.
Okay.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about Huckle Hill Road. I live on that road just south or slightly uphill of the sharp turn you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly there is traffic coming quickly downhill, but I think an important factor is there's a certain amount of bicycle traffic. Cyclists like to, the challenge of getting up to the top of the hill, and then they, especially at certain times of the year, they come zooming down the hill, and if there were speed bumps or something like that at the bottom, that could be a danger to cyclists, more so than to car drivers or truck drivers. Just wanted to let you know that that's a factor that would have to be considered with regard to speed bumps on that road.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's why also, can I say something quick?
Yeah.
That's also why I recommend the dots over the speed bumps. Speed bumps are a lot harder for plows. That's why you don't see them as often in the Northeast, because it's harder to plow unless you do a reverse one, and the snow will still build up in it. That's why the dots work better, because if you hit them with a plow, they're going to pop off and you can reapply them again the next year if you need to. And if not, you're looking into removable speed bumps, like I believe is in front of Memorial Park, like you're saying. They'll start to get pricey.
Yeah, those speed tables work well, though. I forgot about those at Memorial Park, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So, Mr. Guarino, I think that we need to follow up with the sheriff. I've got some notes here, and I did like, and I apologize, I don't remember who mentioned it, but I think that we should see if there is any community safety grants out there. I believe that was Gene that mentioned that, so that perhaps we could look at funding some of those signs. I don't care if we put rumble strip, speed bumps, flashing signs, and stop signs all around if it protects one of the residents' children here. I don't think that we can be overly cautious. Jeff, if I see you staring right through me, I know that.
No, I was thinking, what about spike strips?
Yeah, perfect.
I like that.
Spike strips, all up and down the road.
So let me get some more information from the sheriff. Let's see if there is community safety grants out there. Michael, because you know what you're talking about with those strips, could you try and find a ballpark price on that? I can also get with Mr. Walker and see if he's got any information on that, but I'd like to start.
He should have suppliers that he can get them from cheaper, but if not, I can definitely do that.
Okay. All right. So let me start working on that, and then hopefully by our next meeting, we've got some more information. But I would like to, especially the pool's opening on Friday. we've got to do something before something terrible happens. So we will bring that up at our next meeting. Town facility inspection update. So Tom had reached out to the company that was going to do that, and I completely gave it an oversight that we can't do that till after the 1st of July. So, so that's all set and ready to go. I know that Tom had emailed the company and asked them to hold off. Tom, do you have any more information on that?
No, Cindy will be sending off the retainage on the first warrant in July, once the board signs off on that, and they will schedule right after the 1st of July to come in.
Perfect. So that is in motion. The town hall stair repairs, those are scheduled to start on Thursday or Friday of this week. That could change. He was trying to line up the concrete work for that. So that is in the works. And hopefully that should be starting to happen soon. Let's see what else. Smoking on town property. Tom, were you able to find anything out about that?
Yeah, I received some material from the Vermont Department of Health on that, and it's fairly substantial, and I'm ciphering through it. You can have certain smoking areas. I wasn't sure if that was allowed anymore on municipal or state property. You certainly can't so many feet. It's 15 feet from a building and from an entrance or exit and that type of thing. So I'm still filtering through it, Mr. Chairman, and hope to have a report at your next meeting, or if not before that, in writing on what you should do or what you could do. The health regs were pretty beefy, but they were very good about getting stuff to me quickly.
I mean, it seems as though, on Michael's point from our last meeting, was that we're not going to stop them from smoking. So we need to provide them a receptacle to put their cigarette butts in.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
It's got to be, it's 15 feet from the building. And of course, if you got, fuel tanks or something, you got to be farther away than that. So from the DPW perspective, we got to look at what works down there. No one at the rec, you can't smoke on the rec property anyways. I mean, that's not allowed.
No, so I'm just wondering if we should be looking at our budget and see prior to July 1 if if we should purchase 2 of those smoking poles, whatever they're called, so that we could put one at the highway department and one at the fire department. And then at that point, we would be able to add to the ordinance that's already in place that says that they can't smoke 30 feet around the building, which is right now being ignored. We could put a spot further away so that that's where it needs to be. And then we would have to actually start enforcing this rule when we see this happening. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
I wasn't, this was old business from the meeting that I.
Sorry, yeah. Yep.
So
I can catch up real quick. So we had just discussed smoking on town property. We kind of went into that talking about putting a ordinance in place to find out that there actually is one in place that says that you can't smoke within 30 feet of a town building. Obviously, you can't smoke within the buildings, but that's it. The rule is not being followed as far as that 30-foot distance, primarily at the fire department, where they're smoking out front, oftentimes with the bay doors open.
Just kind of ironic, isn't it? Firefighters.
Anybody putting on a Scott air pack shouldn't be smoking.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's where this all came from, was really just looking at that. But if we're going to try to enforce that and tell them that they need to step away from the building, Michael's point was that as a smoker, if you tell him you can't smoke somewhere, he's going to smoke if he wants to. So we kind of need to set them up away from the building and give them that, and then we do have a leg to stand on.
what does the ordinance say as far as penalties? I mean, is there any punishment or?
You'd have to amend your personnel bylaw, or you'd have to add something to your personnel policy that would provide for a sanction, if you will, even if they're volunteer or call firefighters, they still fall under the provisions of a municipal employee. So you could add that to your municipal personnel ordinance, if you will.
But right now, there are no repercussions for violating this.
I'm looking right now, Jeff.
And what I had said is, from seeing this being tried to be done before, was people start to smoke in their cars and you don't control their cars, not
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
wherever they want.
Well, I mean, that's all right if you want to park 5 feet from the building and smoke in your car. I guess I don't see.
It's that, then it gets to be, there's gonna be butts everywhere outside of cars.
True, right.
Like, if you make
Right,
a
well,
little
then
bit of an area, it invites them to step over there and it keeps it contained.
Well, then it becomes a littering problem. Or, you know, it's the same thing. Somebody throws candy wrappers out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd expect people to have a little more, be a little more conscientious, or
So this
whatever the word is.
actually, this ordinance from 2009 says that you have to smoke 30 feet away from the building. The policy applies to all employees, clients, contractors, and visitors. Smoking may only occur at a reasonable distance, 30 feet or more outside any enclosed area where smoking is prohibited, to ensure that environmental tobacco smoke does not enter the area through entrances, windows, ventilation systems, blah, blah. In addition, approved butt cans need to be provided wherever people will be smoking to safely extinguish. So it sounds like if that ordinance was put into place, that all of these, they've all been supplied a butt can, I would assume, since it was written in there. So I don't know if they still have those on the premises, but it clearly says right there that you can't smoke where an open window or an open door would be able to pick it up, and they're leaning up against the open door. So I guess what do we want to do as a board? Do we need to look at that ordinance, go through it, rewrite it? I mean, it is outdated now that we have the e-cigarettes and all of that nonsense too. I think it may be time to just look at that ordinance as a whole and go over it again. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. The process of revising it or bringing it up to date certainly would publicize that there is an ordinance to begin with. So I agree.
Jean?
I agree, and then make sure there is some, whatever, receptacle down there.
Okay. Sandy?
Yeah, and I think it behooved the chief to step up and speak to his volunteers.
One would agree.
Yeah, we could probably buy some no smoking signs within what, you know, I'm sure there's some signs that, no smoking signs that could be put up too as a reminder.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, so I will work on that this week as well. Tom, when you have some time next time and you are in the office, if we could try and find the proper legal wording on that so we could rewrite that, it would be appreciated.
Yep, I will do that.
Okay. Tom, you're here for the EDA. Is that what you're hanging on for? Mr. Rappaport?
I was here for the facilities inspection, and also because Brana alerted me to the fact of the communications
Okay.
districts.
I'm sorry, then I jumped right over you. Did you have any questions about the facilities report? Obviously, we're not that far into it, as really just trying to get get them lined up and get them here to look at those.
Right. No, I was just listening for an update, and so I understand where things stand now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So the EDA grant application, we found out that, and please, if Jeff, if you have more information on this, but it sounds as though North Star is not going to match that grant, which would have been, I believe, $50,000 that we were asking them for potentially. And they have decided that they would not be doing that. And so I guess at this point, we are trying to figure out whether there is potentially $50,000 somewhere for this, and I'm not sure. Can you speak to that, Jeff?
Yeah, Tom was there also. He could, in case there's something I forget. That, yeah, in a nutshell, North Star wasn't able to step up. There's a rapidly approaching deadline, and in essence, I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong again, we decided to punt for this go around.
Yes, that's my understanding.
There's
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
Go ahead.
I just received an email from Martin over the weekend,
Yeah.
asking me to scramble to find $50,000 to $100,000. And I didn't receive any other emails saying that that there was a punt on this, and that's fine if there is. But, so I've been scrambling, trying to see what we might be able to come up with.
I don't want to discourage you, Tom. I mean, that was my understanding, and it's very possible after the meeting that, you know, maybe Martin and Bob didn't want to give up just yet. So don't give up. But go
So,
what Martin's trying to communicate with you.
Yeah. So, you know, what I've done is I've called BDCC to see if there's any of the VY money that may be able to be targeted for the municipality. I've also talked to Cindy. Cindy's going to scour through what might be usable with the approval of either a board or commission or the select board. It doesn't look like there's much there, you know, coming up to the end of the fiscal year. The town has the $50,000 reserve fund, which Gene and I had a discussion about today. You know, I certainly am not of the mind that the town select board should use the entire amount of that and then have to go back to get it reappropriated. But I do think that if this is important enough, and we can cobble together $25,000 from other sources, and I'm not sure we can. You know, there's not a lot of time. That the select board ought to consider utilizing half of that $50,000 without interest, just the straight appropriation, as a potential match. The other thing I haven't heard of from on this grant is whether in-kind services relative to administration and that type of thing can be counted toward the match. I've got a call into ACCD, and I'm also, even though I'm down here, I do some work down here on behalf of Vernon, and sometimes at Vernon, I got to make a call on behalf of down here. I am going to call both Senator White and Becca Blaine and Representative Coffey to see if there's something they can do to move the shake a little money free from the tree. But it's got to be quickly.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
we got that email from Bob Spencer saying that they would not be applying this round.
That's why I'm very confused by this, because that's what I thought. And then when I spoke with Tom Garino this morning, he had said that they were still looking for those funds. So
Maybe
I have
something
no
went out
idea.
that I didn't get.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get all the emails. That's, that's sometimes and that's okay, but that's sometimes an issue. I may not get
Oh,
everything that the board's getting.
you would not have gotten that email because it has a Sovereignnet address. It was last Thursday. So it had the wrong
Okay,
email too.
all right. Let me see if I can find the one I got from Martin.
Yeah, we didn't get that.
Yeah, but Chris forwarded this one on. Because I got it.
Did I not forward? I thought I got that one from you, Tom. No?
No, you got it from Bob
From
Spencer,
Bob.
but you did
Okay.
forward it to Tom.
Oh,
But it's the wrong TA address.
oh, yes, because when I hit reply all, it kicked back and I didn't even catch that. Now
Yeah, it's a Sovereignnet email for the TA and that's dead.
okay. So Jeff and Tom, where are we at? What is the planning commission? I guess, what are we doing here? Do we keep Tom
Okay,
looking for this?
well, let me read to you the email I got from Martin. This was yesterday morning. I just got off a call with BDCC and USEDA regarding the potential nuclear closure community grant. We are looking at a Hail Mary approach, cobbling together several grant matching sources. Tom, North Star has declined. Okay. We're looking for anything between 50 and 100,000 total. Bob, looks like we can stretch the deadline to July 15th now. That was in parentheses. The questions are, hold on, I got to pull over. This isn't a smart thing to be doing.
Also not legal.
Well, I'm not piece of my concerns.
Where are the state police when you need them?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, it's Massachusetts. There's only 3 left on 495. So the questions are, is there any money left in the FY 2020 budget under the PC or SB that could be used toward the grant match? Cindy is looking for that. Is there any money in the FY 21 budget similarly? Well, we'll look for that. That's not hard. Are there any other pockets in the Vernon budget that might be tapped without holding a town meeting? Parenthesis, not that I'm afraid of holding a town meeting, but because there's not enough time to hold one.
Oh.
Any other ideas for sources of cash? Do you think it's possible for Vernon to demonstrate on some basis that it has lack of bonding capacity? This would permit EDA to reduce the amount of the local match required. My feeling is that small towns in Vermont, Vernon, would have trouble issuing a bond. You really don't have a bonding problem. Your cash position is really good. We are scheduled for a Zoom call at 1 with the BDCC and Wyndham Regional Commission as the next step. Bob, can you join? Tom, you are welcome to join as well. That was yesterday morning. And I forwarded that. I can't see that. I got to go to my sent. I'm sorry.
So that just confuses it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I started scrambling on it. I didn't realize that you got the punt email.
Yeah, but that was before yours.
Yeah.
Tom, go ahead.
That was as of the meeting last Wednesday that we had.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything different.
I'm just looking at my notes from that planning commission meeting, and I think that what's happened is at that meeting, we were dealing with a June 15th deadline. And so it seemed clear that there was no way that we could come up with matching funds by that deadline, which we'd be required to do. And so the feeling was that since the decommissioning process is still going to go on for 5.5, 6 years, whatever the number is, that we should be looking towards applying next year, and in the meantime, be looking for matching sources of funds. But it sounds like since that meeting, the deadline got extended and that Martin and Bob have been in discussion with Wyndham Regional and others to try to come up with matching funds either from one or several sources. So that's all stuff that the rest of the Planning Commission, or at least Jeff and I, are unaware of until you just mentioned it now.
I'm sorry if I overstepped. I was just trying to follow through with what the ask was.
Yeah, I don't think you've overstepped. I think you've just provided information that the reason Jeff and I thought where things had been left was that we were going to punt and apply next year is because that's the way things stood as of the end of the Planning Commission meeting. But things have moved beyond that, and it's just happened outside of the Planning Commission as a group. And I think so. Martin and Bob Spencer would be the people with the most up-to-date information as to whether it looks like it's possible to come up with matching funds and go ahead and submit the grant. I think the application was basically done. It had been circulated and comments had been reached, and the problem was that when you submit the application, you have to, in good faith, say that you have the matching funds in hand, and that was not the case as of the previous deadline.
Okay. So in an effort to speed this along, I'm going to email Bob and Martin tomorrow. Tom, I will copy you on that, and I'm just going to.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask Martin where we're at, what he needs, and what he needs you and I to be focusing on for right now. I think that there's way too many unanswered questions to even have a educated conversation about this right now until we figure out what is needed and what those deadlines are. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So while we're on Planning Commission topics, we did receive an email from Bob Spencer saying that the Planning Commission did unanimously vote to nominate, I need to find my note here, Natalia Mahome, who is a new resident here in Vernon. She lives up on Huckle Hill Road, or I guess that's Basin Road, I'm sorry. And she's attended a couple of select board meetings and planning commission meetings, and she's excited to join a committee here in town. So could I please get a motion to accept the nomination of Natalia Mahome to the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second. Oh,
Moved and seconded by Mr. Dunkley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Perfect. You guys are a full panel again, aren't you? Did that fill all your seats?
It does.
Perfect. And I think she'll be great. She's, Tom, did you have a conversation with her, or was that Martin and Bob that went for a hike with her?
Martin and Bob.
Okay. All right. Well, perfect. So that is taken care of. And I believe you guys are not meeting in July. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So I will shoot her a message and let her know that the nomination has gone through, and then I will put her in touch with Bob Spencer via email, and you guys can take it from there. Does that work?
It does. Thank you very much.
Perfect. All right. And Tom, thank you for everything that you do on everything that you're involved in town. We appreciate it. With that being said, we do need to go into an executive session, and I think Tom will come in with us for, Tom, do you have a town admin report that we could get Carol to put into the minutes?
Well, most of my report, Mr. Chairman, you've heard through the course of the meeting.
Okay.
All
right.
It would have dealt with the opening up of the town hall and the planning board and the smoking and all the things that we've talked about.
Okay. Perfect. So with that, Carol, we are Once we go into executive session, if you would like to cut out, I believe that we will come out with no action taken. And finishing up the notes for the remainder of the meeting after Carol leaves.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So if we could get that motion, that would be great.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into executive session with our temporary town administrator on the appointment of employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, 1 VSA 3133A3.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 We are in executive session at 8:36.